This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening, thanks for joining us. A woman says she was duped into believing a hunt for bison inside a western Manitoba rancher's property was legitimate. Now she regrets not noticing the signs that it was all a scam. It comes days after police charged a Portage La Prairie man in the case. CBC's Zubina Ahmed has more from the farmer and the hunter.
A herd of bison graze on the lush pastures of Buffalo Valley Ranch. On Monday, 6 of these animals were illegally killed. Trail cam footage shows some of the aftermath. Farm owner Brendan Liskey says he's never seen anything like it.
And that was where the kill spot was. There was various locations where, blood piles on the ground. It kind of looked like, like a war zone. There's blood everywhere. There's a chain that they had forgot. You can tell it was kind of a rush situation.
Jolene Mitchell, her boyfriend, and his cousin responded to a Facebook ad for a bison hunt. They say they had no idea it was a scam and made the trip from Riding Mountain. She says the man in charge asked them to pay $1,500 for each bison they shot.
I'm actually an Indigenous person, and the opportunity to hunt a bison was extremely significant to me and my culture, so I told him, yeah, sure, we'll come along.
Mitchell said the man told them these were his bison, which had escaped onto someone else's land, and that the owner had given him the permission to shoot them.
So we all got our guns ready, and he unlocked the gate, and we watched him unlock and open the gate, and he got us to climb down through the valley to approach the bison, which we now know, too, is because he wanted us to avoid the game cameras.
A 52-year-old man has been charged with theft over $5,000 and mischief over $5,000.
The meat is the rightful owner, or is rightfully belongs to the farmer who is the victim in this case. So I guess now they'll have to make, arrangements with the butchers or whoever they paid for the processing, because there's some cost associated with that as well.
Animal Justice of Canada is demanding the accused also face animal cruelty charges. RCMP say additional charges are likely, and the accused will appear in court in January. Zubina Ahmed, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A proposed 40-unit townhouse complex in River Heights has some residents in the area already worried about potential problems. Neighbours living next to the area say it would bring too much density to the community and increase traffic at an already congested corner. CBC's Cameron McLean has more.
This is my backyard.
Leona Murphy has lived in this River Heights home for close to 50 years. She says plans for a townhouse complex on this decommissioned railway corridor would change her way of life.
I live right on St. John Brebeuf Street, so I'm going to have the bulk of all the traffic and stuff. I just don't think it's right.
The plans call for 40 units in 3 buildings, each 3 stories. The townhouses would be built directly across the back lane from Murphy's home.
40 units? We're not even 40 houses down this street.
In addition to increasing traffic, neighbors say they would lose a green space which they use for recreation and observing nature. Murphy and some neighbors wrote letters to the city objecting to the plan. An appeal hearing is set for next Wednesday at City Hall. The proposed townhouses would be south of an existing condo development on the same rail line. Plans for the condos, approved in 2008, originally called for 36 units covering the entire corridor between Corridon and John Brebeuf Place. But those plans were later cut down to 18 units.
So it surprises me now that the neighbors are saying, I just heard that they're going to start these plans up again for the continuance of 40 units. Which would be a lot of people and a lot of traffic.
Vern Kostelnik and her sister Val live directly across from the existing condos, and she worries the same could happen to homes near the proposed townhouses. Planners with the developer, Landmark Planning and Development, say the land is already zoned for multifamily housing. The hearing is on a variance to allow for 3 more units and a height increase of 3.5 feet.
Neither of the variances really, relate to traffic, but of course that is something that we consider as part of our planning process.
They say the Public Works Department has reviewed the plans and had no concerns about traffic. The appeal committee will make a final decision on the matter next week. Cameron McLean, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Manitoba has officially avoided a massive healthcare strike. Healthcare support workers represented by CUPE and MGEU ratified a new deal agreement agreed to earlier this month. CBC's Felicia Adam has more.
The deal covers more than 25,000 healthcare support workers across the province. They include home care and support staff in hospitals and personal care homes. The contract sees the average wage increase by 27% over 4 years and includes higher starting wages for high vacancy positions. This means Manitoba healthcare support workers would no longer be the lowest paid in Canada. Workers will now have 3 more paid sick days, and for some, unpaid scheduled hours will be eliminated. Gord Delbridge, president of CUPE 500, says the new agreement gives staff what they deserve.
I think this is really going to improve the lives of CUPE healthcare workers significantly. They've fallen behind over the previous and past years. This was the time for them to do some catch-up. That's taken place here.
Health Minister Ozoma Azaguera called the ratification a big win for Manitobans.
That was Felicia Adam reporting. Premier Wab Kinew is getting by with a little more help from the feds. Ottawa is kicking in more money for Manitoba's school nutrition program. CBC's Bartley Kivas reports.
We need to break them apart.
Politicians go bananas for photo ops, especially when those photo ops involve feeding bananas to cute little kids. The Deputy Prime Minister was in Winnipeg this morning to confirm the Liberal government's plan to top up Manitoba's school nutrition program. The feds are adding $4 to $7 million a year to what right now is a $30 million annual school meals program.
That's really meaningful for every single parent who has a kid and knows their kid's going to get a snack. For every single kid who's not going to be really hungry.
The catch is, the money is supposed to flow over the next 3 years, while Freeland's Liberal minority government may not survive the next election. The federal Conservatives, riding high in the polls, are no fan of the school nutrition program. In a statement, the Conservatives called this Liberal government spending bureaucracy, which kids can't eat. The Conservatives point out Manitoba's program doesn't cover every student in every school. Premier Wab Kinew says while he can't control what happens in Ottawa, he wants to ensure funding for meals in schools is election-proof in Manitoba.
At some future date, if there is a change in the provincial government, I want it to be out of the question for the school food program to be cut.
Right now, Manitoba pays for meals in 50 schools. The federal money will expand that to 87. Bartley Kivas, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Chiefs of the Assembly of First Nations say they want changes made to a deal to reform the on-reserve child welfare system. The AFN rejected the federal government's $48.6 billion offer yesterday.
Draft resolution number 1 does not carry, so is defeated.
The AFN wants a new process with a new negotiating team. It voted in favor today of restarting negotiations with Ottawa to get an amended offer. The federal government must now decide whether to do that or make regional deals with groups which favored the most recent offer. AFN National Chief Cindy Woodhouse-Neepanak spoke after the vote.
We've been proud to stand with you in support of this agreement, and we will stay by your side as you consider next steps to support First Nations children in your jurisdiction. We also recognize the success of the campaign that defeated this resolution. You spoke with passion, and you convinced the majority to vote against this $47.8 billion national agreement. And I will be there to work with you, but we must always remember, wherever we land in this new course, that the rights holders must be in control and that the chiefs are in charge.
Let's bring in weather specialist Riley Lachak. And Riley, it wasn't as warm out today.
Certainly not as warm, but still above seasonal for this time of the year. Yeah, no 20s on the map in Manitoba today, like we have seen the past couple of days, but certainly some warmer temperatures than we should be seeing for this time of the year. Normally we'd be at about 9 for this time of the year across southern Manitoba. 14 is where we got to in Winnipeg, 12 in Brandon, 16s and 17s through northwestern Ontario. You don't have to go too far to find some of that heat, though, through the U.S. Midwest, getting into the 23-24 degree range through parts of Nebraska and into South Dakota. Riding along this ridge of high pressure that's really set in for much of the continent. Cold front passing through, bringing us a few showers. That's now off into northwestern Ontario. Overnight tonight, we'll start to see our skies clearing in Winnipeg down to 0. Northwest winds at 10, which start to pick up again as we get through the morning hours. Into the afternoon, looking at a high of 15 tomorrow. A sun cloud mix in Brittany. We do have some warmer temperatures coming up as well. I'll have that when I come back.
All right. Thanks, Riley.
Welcome.
A historic proposed deal. Why tobacco giants could be paying out tens of billions of dollars to provinces and smokers. More on that straight ahead. Details were revealed today of a proposed settlement between tobacco companies, provinces, territories, and tens of thousands of Quebec smokers. The multi-billion-dollar deal was decades in the making. The CBC's Jennifer Yoon is in Montreal with the details.
$32 billion paid out by 3 major tobacco companies to smokers diagnosed with lung cancer, throat cancer, or emphysema, as well as provinces and territories to recover healthcare costs. If the proposed plan is accepted, it would be the biggest deal of its kind outside the United States.
When we started this case in 1998, not a single person in the world had received a single penny from a tobacco company in compensation. And as a result of this litigation, tens of thousands of Canadians will receive very significant awards.
This is the result of a legal battle that's been going on for decades. The Quebec class action lawsuit was filed in 1998 involving smokers that got seriously sick or couldn't quit. The plaintiffs won the case in 2015. It just took this long for the potential payout because the companies were seeking creditor protection. If this proposed plan is accepted, the plaintiffs would file claims for compensation up to $100,000 each. But many of the class action members have died already, so their successors will be eligible for the compensation.
Obviously, our loved ones won't come back from the dead, but at least it gives us some kind of justice, some kind of closure.
The proposed plan also includes more than $25 billion for provinces and territories recouping health costs, as well as $2.5 billion for smokers in other provinces diagnosed with some cancers between 2015 and 2019. It must be voted on by creditors no later than December 12th and approved by the court. Jennifer Yoon, CBC News, Montreal.
Manitoba's premier has plans for whatever money is coming from that tobacco settlement. Premier Wabkanu says while he can't talk about numbers until the legal process plays out, he'd like to see the money used to improve facilities at cancer care and get staff there state-of-the-art equipment.
However this process plays out, at the end of the day, when the provincial government receives resources, we are going to ensure that everything goes to fighting cancer in this province.
Now, in May, Canoe said Manitoba could see anywhere from hundreds of millions to $500 million. More than 200 community development projects are receiving a total of $12 million in provincial grants. The money comes from the province's From the Ground Up program, which focuses on community-led responses and revitalization efforts. Today, the province highlighted 2 projects receiving $50,000, the Marlene Street Community Resources Centre in St. Vital and the Portage Learning and Literacy Centre in Portage-La Prairie.
We saw a need, especially the last few years, where a lot of youth are struggling to be able to just get through, to support their mental health, and to kind of meet with them where they're at, that we wanted to use this funding to be able to complement our programming that we're currently offering.
The province says the program is an important pillar in the fight against crime and poverty. Funding is available to nonprofit organizations, municipalities, and Northern Affairs community councils. The Winnipeg Jets face off with the San Jose Sharks in just under an hour, and tonight's game is all about star goalie Connor Hellebuyck and has been dubbed Hellebuyck Night. As CBC's Gavin Axelrod shows us, fans will have a chance to get up close and personal with some of his NHL hardware.
It's hard to get pucks past Winnipeg Jets goalie Connor Hellebuyck.
And Hellebuyck made the save!
That's why he won this trophy last year, the Vezina, awarded to the league's best goalie. It's one of 2 trophies on display during Friday's game.
When you're at the Hall of Fame, they're behind glass, so this is definitely a unique opportunity for the fans.
Hellebuyck also won the William M. Jennings Trophy last season, given to the goalies who play a minimum 25 games for the team allowing the fewest goals in the regular season. Isaac Westgate says when players get to see their awards up close, they're taken back to the days of being little fans with big dreams.
They're like a kid in a candy store, no different than a fan who's coming to take a picture with a trophy, and it's amazing to see an NHL player's reaction to winning these.
Speaking to reporters Thursday, Hellebuyck says getting to touch the Vezina and Jennings trophies is a rare opportunity for fans.
And this is such a big hockey
community. I think being able to bring those trophies here and give them a little piece of history is pretty cool.
But the trophy's protectors hope the next time they're here is for hockey's top prize.
And hopefully we're going to be back here one day celebrating with Winnipeg.
Well, the Jets are off to an undefeated start with their ultimate goal being to win a Stanley Cup. But they don't give out that trophy in October. So in the meantime, fans can get their picture taken with the Vezina and Jennings trophy during Friday's game. Gavin Axelrod, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Riley's back in now. And Riley, thanks for holding down the fort yesterday. We were at CBC and myself were at a fundraiser last night on behalf of Harvest Manitoba, very important cause. Congratulations to them. They raised $500,000 last night alone, and they're feeding upwards of 50,000 people every single month. It's incredible.
Great cause.
Yeah, so thank you to them. Great event last night, and thank you to you for holding things down here. And to all of you guys, Riley, things are, I saw a 2 and a +2 with a number behind it in the forecast. Like, so we're going back up to summer temperatures here.
There's both iterations of that in the long range in particular, which I'll get into. First, I want to start with our upper level winds here, because this gives us a good indicator of what's happening with our weather and, of course, why it's happening. So you can see the jet stream, this river of air here, and really we have this ridge that is really built in over southern Ontario, and what that has done is really cleared out a lot of the U.S. Midwest. That has slid a little bit further to the east, so what we have seen is some of the impacts from this area of low pressure over the territories now, and what that did was bring down that cold front, brought us some showers this morning, and really left us with kind of a dreary day today, albeit a lot calmer. We get the winds back along with the sunshine as we get into the next couple of days. So starting Saturday with a mix of sun and clouds. I'm calling tomorrow a general sun-cloud mix. We'll have some periods of cloudy skies, particularly earlier in the day for parts of the west, and of course some sunshine throughout the day as well. So do expect that mix of sun and cloud tomorrow. Bit more instability begins to roll through parts of central Manitoba as we get into Sunday, and I'm not talking a soaking rain, but certainly some showers as we get through the overnight period Saturday into Sunday, particularly for areas like Swan River through Grand Rapids, Barons River into eastern Manitoba, looking at a few showers through the later part of Saturday into Sunday. For the rest of us, mainly sunny skies. I think this particular model overdoing it a little bit with the cloud cover, but we are looking at a mainly sunny sky ahead, I think, for Sunday. And then comes our next weather maker, low out of Alberta. This will track across as we get through the day on Monday. Potentially, at this point, it looks like some of the models wanting to give some accumulating snow for parts of northern Manitoba into next week, which we'll get into as that draws a little bit closer. I mentioned the winds, and we will see some winds starting to pick up as we get into Saturday again. By the lunch hour, looking at winds generally 20 gusting 40. Could see some gusts, particularly through south central Manitoba and into the Interlake at 50 or higher through the day tomorrow. I'm saying 30 gusting 50 for Winnipeg, more like 20 to 40 for parts of Westman and into northern Manitoba as well. Those winds do start to die off a bit as we get into Sunday, particularly through the later part of the day, but do expect a bit of a breezy weekend ahead for the next couple of days. 20 degrees on the way for Monday, and then things really, Brittany, drop off very quickly. Good chance we could see some showers as a result of that system that'll roll through on Tuesday, and temperatures staying fairly cool as we get into next week.
All right, thanks, Riley.
You're welcome.
Well, we'll have more to come after this break. Stay with us. We're back after this. Fear of extortion is gripping people living in an Edmonton neighbourhood, and the threat behind it is arson. The CBC's Julia Wong has the story.
A frightening scene as a family of 4 fled for their lives after police say their house was intentionally set on fire. But what followed that Sunday morning incident is also alarming. Notes found in nearby mailboxes and at doorsteps suggesting neighbors could see the same fate unless they pay $1,000 to a Bitcoin address. CBC News has seen the notes, handwritten on index cards, mostly in block letters. We spoke to people at 2 different homes who received the notes. Neither wanted to speak on camera. They say they're worried for their family's safety. Others in the neighborhood say they're also afraid, scared to sleep, worried whoever did this will come back. It's not the only incident causing concern. Police say in late September, a vehicle in a different neighborhood was deliberately torched, and a note with similar handwriting was left, also demanding Bitcoin. Police say they do not know if the 2 incidents are directly related.
It's almost identical.
We showed the notes to this former police officer.
These are just folks that are now being extorted at a neighborhood level, which is not just brazen, that's just not really, that's unheard of actually.
And he highlights that Bitcoin is untraceable.
Well, the person's smart because $1,000 is doable. People might pay $1,000 and not call the police and just to make sure they're safe.
But police say that is a problem.
Your silence or paying off these folks is only going to empower and embolden them and cause more victims. Make sure you call the police.
Police say they're pouring resources into the investigations, but nerves likely to be unsettled until those responsible are found. Julia Wong, CBC News, Edmonton.
A marketplace investigation has found many popular restaurant chains serving halal food have staff members who can't answer basic questions about it. And as Charles Iagro shows us, some say the system that's set out to ensure standards are met is often failing.
You can see the meat glisten.
Before food bloggers Mohammed and Sarah Arfan eat at a restaurant, they need to get a few questions answered about the halal food they're being served.
So what we're looking for is the meat halal? Can we see the certificate?
So when an establishment is not well informed, they can lose a customer that day.
For meat like chicken, beef, or lamb to be considered halal, the animal must first be in good health and treated humanely. Then a prayer is recited before the animal is slaughtered by a Muslim, with a swift, deep cut across the throat. To see how well informed some of Canada's top fast food chains are about the halal they're selling, and whether we can trust the certificates they show us, Marketplace went undercover, visiting 2 KFC, Boston Pizza, Popeyes, Osmow's, and Mary Brown's locations across the Toronto area. Is the restaurant certified halal?
Yeah.
The whole restaurant is?
Yeah.
Certified halal? Okay. 6 of the 10 locations said their entire restaurant is certified halal, when in fact, none of them are.
I would be very disappointed if I was the customer of that restaurant and having to find out that I am being misled.
Subadar says the certification system is often misused, and a restaurant should not claim to be certified unless each ingredient and meat source has been verified halal. While the Canadian Food Inspection Agency requires halal products be certified, the certifying bodies, and there are more than a dozen in Canada, are not regulated. Subadar is calling on the government to change that.
First and foremost, we need to decide what the standard is going to be. Everyone needs to be aligned with those standards. And then there should be periodic audits, just like there's audits for everything else, right?
The CFIA declined to talk to us, but says it's up to the certification bodies to ensure religious requirements are adhered to. As for the restaurants, Osmow's tells us that it will reach out to its certifiers to learn more about the certification process. Mary Brown's tells us that they are committed to transparency. And Boston Pizza told us that its locations which offer halal menu items, well, they are required to complete online training. KFC and Popeyes did not respond to our requests for comment. Charles Iagro, CBC News, Toronto.
Federal Immigration Minister Mark Miller was in Winnipeg today. He spoke with CBC's Marcy Marcusa. Miller addressed recent changes made by Ottawa, which allows international students to only work 24 hours a week.
The 40-hour work week
was clear was impacting studies. We bring people in here to study and not to work. At the same time, not naive as to what it costs to live in Canada. So the balance that we're trying to strike to make sure that people are prioritizing their studies is why we fixed that 24-hour period, because we recognize that, well, 20 hours is a lot. I've struggled through that as a student as well. I know your studies are suffering unless you're an exceptional individual. But it is really the exception of people that can work over 20 hours. 24 felt like a balance. It brings us into what is sort of the international norm. There are some countries where people can't work when they're international students. They have to figure out another way to make money. So it's a delicate balance. And as we're adjusting the international student visa system, we want to make sure that the perverse incentives for people to kind of exploit the system are not there. Giving the impression that people can come and not focus on their studies is one of those, but striking that balance, I think, is something I had to struggle with, and it's something we'll completely continue to re-examine. But my focus on this revised, revamped, reformed system is to focus more on quality and less on quantity.
I want to ask you about another system that's changing. Obviously, you're looking at reducing the number of permanent residents and temporary residents in this country that Canada accepts. Now, there's smaller provinces like ours in Manitoba, which you're well aware of, who want more immigrants. I know that our parliamentary reporter, our legislative reporter rather, Ian Frey, sat down with the provincial immigration minister here, Malaya Marcelino, a few weeks ago. Marcelino said, you know, she would like more than the 9,500, which is the number that we're using, provincial nominees that have been offered in 2024. Is there a scenario where you could imagine, as you're making these decisions, and we're going to hear your numbers in November, I understand, right, for the next 2 years, Canada's targets? Yep. But is there a scenario where if one province says we can meet the cap that the feds are asking for, and Manitoba wants to bring in more people, that we can take numbers from another province effectively and bring in more people here, and still federally and nationally are going to be meeting the numbers that you're targeting? Or is this going to be a flat number that each province is going to be bringing in?
Without kind of scooping my own announcement, Marcy, what I have said to the Premier a couple days ago, what I said to Minister Marcelino is as follows. For provinces that are willing to work with us and willing to be responsible in their duty to make sure that immigrants are well supported when they get here and contributing to the economy, we're willing to work with provinces that take that responsibility. The federal government over the last few years has progressively given to provinces about 100,000+ immigrants to select themselves according to their own criteria. They haven't all necessarily been responsible in the way they've deployed that, and come back to the government complaining that there's too many people and that they don't have the infrastructure to support them. So you can't have it both ways. Part of making sure that we have a controlled immigration system is making sure the federal government is keeping an eye on those institutions, including provinces, including universities and colleges, that have that exceptional privilege of being able to take people in from abroad, but making sure they're actually following through with that and making sure that they're being responsible in supporting these people as they integrate into a new country. So what I said to the Premier is work with us. There are certainly some reflections going on about the acceptable levels of temporary residence in this country, the acceptable numbers of permanent residents. I hear Canadians when they say we need to make sure that we have volumes that are acceptable. And that means every province has to step up and make sure that they are doing their jobs. They can't come to me on one hand and say, we want more people, but then cut immigration. It just doesn't make sense. It would be a complete gutting of the federal government's responsibility. So I've told Manitoba has been exceptionally cooperative with us, has been very positive, at least this iteration of the government.
Joe Biden repeated hopes today that Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar's death will lead to a Gaza ceasefire. But from Hamas, there was defiance. And from Israel, no change from yesterday's vow that the war will go on. The CBC's Briar Stewart reports.
Smoke rises from northern Gaza as the Israeli military says this is a unit preparing to head into the city of Jabalia. The death of Hamas's leader, Yahya Sinwar, might have achieved a key Israeli goal in this war, but it didn't end it. The families of the hostages wish it did.
This moment becomes something if it's leveraged to bring the hostages home.
Abion's cousin, Ofer Calderon, is still trapped in Gaza. His 2 children were released in the temporary truce last fall. His son made this video pleading for his dad's freedom.
It's an awful, awful situation that has gone on here for more than 370 days. We can end this. We need 100 hostages home now.
But there aren't any signs an agreement is close. A Hamas official warns that the hostages will only be released once imprisoned Palestinians are freed and the Israeli military withdraws from Gaza. There in the city of Han Yunis, a videographer working for CBC News filmed Friday prayers at a destroyed mosque. Many have publicly hailed Sinwar as a martyr. But this man also says now it's time for Hamas to negotiate. Another says the blame rests with Israel. All of the stubbornness is on its side, he says.
This is not the end of the war in Gaza.
Israel's prime minister says the country will continue to root out militants unless they put down their weapons and release the hostages.
You argued for so long that Sinwar prevents a deal.
The security expert says he would like to believe that Sinwar's death will be enough for Benjamin Netanyahu to negotiate.
So do you think that this is enough for him, that this victory is enough?
No, I don't. But I'm afraid that his list of priorities is somewhat different.
On that list, the complete destruction of Hamas, still fighting in what's left of Gaza. Briar Stewart, CBC News, Jerusalem.
She's a volleyball player and coach, a strong advocate for Indigenous women and girls, and a mentor we think you need to know about. More on that straight ahead. Stay with us. October is Women's History Month. It's a time to honor and celebrate notable women and their achievements. Throughout this month, we're going to introduce you to women who are breaking barriers. They may be at the top of their career field or helping ensure this province is a little bit better off. These are people we think you should know about. This woman is a Métis athlete, a mom, a lawyer, an advocate, and she's someone giving back to the community. Jamie Menzies, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So, Jamie, you've represented Manitoba a number of times at the North American Indigenous Games, the Canada Games, and you've been named Manitoba's Female Indigenous Coach of the Decade. So I want to start there with sport. And what does sport mean to you?
It's a big question. It's meant different things at different times of my life, but I think the consistent threads are that it's given me spaces to build relationships and feel part of a community. And although the goals have changed, it's always given me a space to work towards goals. And those have looked different over the years, but those have been two important things in my life.
Anybody who's been involved in sport knows how important it can be to them, myself included. And one thing you've really taken is a holistic approach when it comes to your coaching, and you've really been relentless in using sport as a catalyst for social change. So I want you to tell us a little bit about the club that you founded.
Well, Agouchin volleyball. Agouchin is a word that means hanging in the sky or a celestial body, which I thought was a nice, or which my friends and I thought was a nice idea for volleyball. You know, it was kind of born out of frustration and also born out of wanting to use the skills that I have to contribute to something. You know, frustrations being just the lack of women, Indigenous women, Two-Spirit folks, and just Indigenous people generally in elite sport or post-secondary sport or coaching, and trying to kind of create a pathway for that to happen a little bit more in whatever way I can. I didn't do it alone. Agouchin was born out of community support and a lot of people, all hands on deck. And yeah, for 7 years, it's taken different shapes and taken on different projects, but I'm really enjoying working within it.
I love that it's a space where you've made for people to feel safe, be able to grow, be able to ask questions, especially for Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirit people. And why do you think places like this club and like other programs like this are so important, especially for Indigenous women and girls?
Well, I think anyone who knows me knows that it's actually not about the volleyball or the sport at all, Agouchin. It is really just about safe spaces for groups of people that historically and currently don't always have safe spaces. It's about keeping like the retention of girls, Two-Spirit folks in sport at an age where classically there's a high drop-off rate. And one of the more recent goals of mine is to mentor Indigenous coaches. So that's sort of where I'm putting a lot of my energy right now. I think that representation matters, and to have Indigenous women and Two-Spirit folks in positions of authority, or the classically the positions taken up by white cis men. That's sort of one of Agouchin's projects as well.
When you and I spoke earlier, we talked about making sure that people at a young age had Indigenous superheroes to look up to. You're raising a child of your own. Just speak a little bit about why you think that's so important that we see our Indigenous women, Two-Spirit folk at the top of their game, so that young people have somebody to look up to.
Yeah, well, not only relationally, but also systemically in this country, in a lot of countries, Indigenous women specifically have many powers working against them. In Agouchin sports spaces, we're building Indigenous women and Two-Spirit folks up. We're celebrating their skills. We're cheering and, you know, getting people in touch with their bodies, their confidence, play, laughter, joy. I love that my 6-year-old son gets to grow up thinking of Indigenous women as superheroes and super athletes, and not some of the other ways that Indigenous women can be portrayed in media or historically have been framed.
Well, that's all that we have time for. I didn't even get to touch on your advocacy. You're also a lawyer. You give back to so many people, and you are one of our superheroes this month. Jamie, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for chatting.
And all month long, we're going to be introducing you to superstar women that we think you need to know about. So thank you, Jamie.
Very inspiring stories.
Yeah. Tomorrow, dog walk. What do I need to wear?
Actually, we're looking at temperatures getting closer to that seasonal mark. So you'll want to make sure that you pull out those fall coats.
All right. It's fair. You know what? It's October. Fair enough.
I'm trying to gently ease you into it. Yeah, we are looking at somewhat brighter conditions tomorrow. Have a look at, well, we're going to do the catwalking forecast tonight, too. Hopefully, Selma is not scared of the dog barking noise, but I thought we'd switch things up a little bit for your Friday. Thanks, Eva, for sending this picture in. You can keep sending yours to talkback at cbc.ca. 3 degrees to start at 8 o'clock in the morning tomorrow, getting down to an overnight low around 0 in Winnipeg. Could see some cooler temps back to the west. 15 by the afternoon, and supper time tomorrow looking at a gusty south wind, 30 gusting to 50 as we head into the evening hours, tapering off slightly as we get into the day on Sunday. So we're still stuck under some of this cloud cover at the moment. We'll start to see that clearing as we get through the overnight period tonight, but still a chance we could see a couple of sprinkles through extreme southern Manitoba, places like Morden, Winkler, Emerson, through Sprague, and into northwestern Ontario, getting down to -1 to -3 through Westman overnight tonight. Close to the freezing mark as well through parts of northern Manitoba, -2 in Thompson, 0 in Gillam, 1 overnight in Shamattawa. And looking at your Saturday forecast, mainly cloudy skies, a bit of sun as we get through the afternoon hours, particularly for places like Flin Flon through Grand Rapids, Norway House, and still a few showers yet to come for places like Gillam into Shamattawa. For southern Manitoba, we do clear out as we get through the day, but I'm calling it a general mix of sun and cloud tomorrow. Temperatures jumping up above seasonal once again, 16s and 17s through the west. Look at what happens as we get into Sunday, though. 20s and 21s through Westman, 19 in Dauphin for Sunday, and 4s and 5s through parts of northern Manitoba. Weather photo for you this evening. This one is from Dave, who shot this nice photo in Inglis. I've got lots of fall photos to show you as we get into the week next week, and keep yours coming as well to talkback at cbc.ca.
All right. Thank you so much, Riley.
You're welcome.
Well, Ottawa doctors say they're getting bogged down by the federal government's return to office mandate. As public servants come looking for doctors' notes, it's creating a mountain of paperwork and cutting into time for patient care. Arthur White-Crummey reports.
Dr. Derek McClellan spends every Wednesday dealing with paperwork all day. Since the federal government pushed its employees back to the office 3 days a week, his public servant patients are adding to the pile.
Typically, someone comes to see me, they've spoken to a manager who said, yeah, go get a medical note if you want to be exempt from these things.
So they do, but that isn't the end of Dr. McClellan's tasks. The patients return to his Riverside South medical office with multi-page forms, sometimes twice.
Looking at the family med crisis right now in the province as a whole, one of the biggest issues is the admin burden, right? So paperwork, time spent doing things that are not directly related to patient care. And so one of the biggest things with this is just adding more paperwork.
Ottawa family doctors first noticed the problem over the spring and summer, after the federal government announced its new return to office mandate. But departments also have a duty to accommodate employees with barriers, and federal directives tell managers to seek documentation. McClellan says that can mean tension with patients if he doesn't see a valid medical reason for their request.
We have no business being involved in this conversation, so it definitely creates some animosity.
Dr. Alex Duong agrees. He says the federal government is downloading its accommodation problem onto family doctors, creating friction in the exam room and eating up their time.
We're being asked to police these return to work policies for the federal government, which is frankly, it's not an effective use of our time. We already have a shortage of doctors. What happens is that the more time I'm spending on these forms, the less time I'm able to spend on patients.
Duong sees an easy solution to the problem.
The government can hire their own physicians who have an interest in occupational medicine to determine restrictions as well.
Arthur White-Crummy, CBC News, Ottawa.
Well, and as we're sitting into fall right now, we want to see your fall pictures that Riley can show them each night.
Yes, I put a call out on Radio Noon actually earlier today and got several from all parts of Manitoba. But I'd love your fall pictures, especially as we head toward Halloween, the spooky season, the decorations. Talk back at cbc.ca. That's where I want to see those.
Do you have a must-watch Halloween movie?
Oh, I've got so many of them.
Hocus Pocus.
Yeah.
It's got to be Hocus
That's
Pocus.
a good one.
Well, speaking of Halloween movies, it's a cult classic movie year after year, nearly 5 decades later, still a fan favorite. Why Winnipeggers flock to fill seats to watch this. Straight ahead.
All right, here's another look at your weekend forecast, and we are looking at temperatures staying well above seasonal for the next few days at least. 15 breezy for Saturday with a mainly A mix of sun and clouds. Bit sunnier on Sunday, 18 degrees, 20 for Monday, then a real sharp drop in our temperatures as we see that next system moving through. We'll be keeping a close eye on that one, but at this point looks like will bring us some showers for Wednesday, single-digit highs as we get through next week, and even those overnight lows getting pretty close to the freezing mark. Well, it's time to do a bit of a time warp once again with the ultimate cult classic.
It's the 49th anniversary of the Rocky Horror Picture Show this year, and fans came out to watch the iconic piece of cinema. Here's your daily lift.
I've been waiting a long time to come to a live version of Rocky Horror Picture Show, and I thought it'd be fun because I remember way back in university days going to the theater there and throwing toast, spraying water, wearing a newspaper on my head. So when this came out, I thought, we're coming.
It's actually a tradition of ours. So I went to my first show when I was 16. And I went with my mom and she took me, and this is now like our 4th or 5th one that we've gone to, so it's like an annual Halloween thing for us.
My daughter loves theatrical stuff, and so I support her and we have fun.
I grew up kind of adjacent to Rocky Horror. I wasn't part of the original fandom or group, but as a queer person, it was absolutely part of my formation. And the celebratory community that grew up around it and the participation has been a big thing.
It was a favorite movie of mine growing up, and I just had to share it with my daughter, and she kind of fell in love with it from the first time she saw it, and it's like a Halloween tradition for us, and this is the first all ages show that has come, and I've been able to take her to, so I've been very excited for it.
I feel like it's almost kind of a bit of a timeless classic.
I love everybody getting all dressed up for it, and I have to admit I've never seen it.
Not either.
But maybe it should be on my Halloween movie list this year.
You got your weekend set for you.
Yeah, I've got Hocus Pocus, Hocus Pocus 2, Witch It. I got all of the classics.
The outfits, I was going to say the outfits, just some of the intricacies and the time.
Maybe a Halloween costume for this year.
Yeah, exactly.
Or send me your Halloween costume ideas.
Yeah.
Well, have a wonderful evening and weekend, and we will see you back here on Monday night.
Have a good one.